Hey guys, if you're listening to this episode, please note that this original recording and released under the Balance Boss Mom podcast. The podcast has since evolved and is now called The Balance with Erika B. This is a previously recorded conversation that I believe is truly worth hearing, listening, and seeing. Please disregard the introduction where I reference to the Balance Boss Mom podcast, as this episode was created before the rebrand. Again, guys, I want to thank you for continuing this journey with me, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Bye, guys. All right, guys, before we start today's episode, it will contain discussions about mental health challenges and the mention of suicide. So please listen with care. Take what you need. Take a pause break before you start this episode. I am so excited about having this episode this afternoon, but I just wanted to make sure that there is a trigger warning in today's episode because of what we're going to be mentioning today. So again, just take a pause break, take a little breather, come back with some popcorn, maybe a glass of wine or even some Kool-Aid. I like Kool-Aid. So I want to say, hey, mamas, welcome back to the Balance Boss Mom podcast. I'm your host, Erika. And today's episode, like I said, we're mentioning about mental health challenges and also mentioning about suicide. Please take care of yourself as you're listening to this episode today and feel free to pause if needed. Today's episode is deeply powerful and honestly so much needed, especially for us as mothers. We're talking about self-love, but not surface level kind, the kind that requires healing, unlearning, and choosing yourself. I say you always should choose yourself first before you choose everyone else, even when it feels uncomfortable. So I am joined by Sierra, who is truly a radiant woman, a mama of one, and a self-love mentor for women who are leaders in their own world. Over the past 6 years, she has overcome chronic mental health challenges and has stepped into becoming what is called the golden girl of her own life, and now helps other women to do the same. Through her work in people-pleasing, inner child healing, anxiety, and self-confidence, she teaches women how to make self-love a lifestyle and not just a concept. Without further ado, I am so excited for Sierra to come onto the podcast. So welcome to the Balance Boss Mom podcast.
Thank you so much, Erika, for having me here. It's delightful to be with you. It's amazing to listen to that back, listening to an intro back, and you're sitting there going, that's me? Oh my goodness.
Well, I'm glad that you're on this podcast, and I would love to get into the story about your journey. Where did it all start? Whatever you feel comfortable sharing with or how you got here, I would love to hear and share with others. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's talk about your journey. So how did you get started?
Thank you so much. My journey began, really it began in childhood, as it does with all of us. And I'm not just talking, of course, that's where we begin. We're born into the world and that's what happens, and we grow up within our family unit. But I'm talking about the subconscious level, the subconscious mind, all of the programming, the patterns, the habits, the beliefs that we are exposed to through our childhood, through watching our primary caregivers, through watching society and the world and how it plays out within our own individual worlds, that truly shapes who we are. And naturally, I was no exception. I grew up watching people-pleasing dynamics within my family. I grew up watching what it was like to try and strive to have love from another rather than self-sourcing it from within. And that was something that really stuck with me as I was a young child. And then as I began to grow up, I sought to find this love externally from my primary caregivers, but then also from romantic partners through my teenage life. I would do everything I possibly could to shapeshift, to change myself, to like what they liked, to get their attention in every way possible. From the age of 14 to the age of 21, I was in a relationship basically continuously, just hopping from one person to the other, because I was so adamant that if I just pleased them enough, if I just gave myself away enough, then surely somebody would like me. And it would fill this emotional void, this hole that I had within myself. I was always and always have been and still am a deeply feeling person, and somebody that has a really rich inner world. And I hadn't found yet somebody that knew how to possibly handle that with the grace and care that I needed. Little did I know it actually needed to be me first, that we come to that lesson. But for my 21st birthday, and this is not what I asked for, but now I'm so delighted it happened because it is the best present I've ever had. I'd go through it again and again and again. Shortly after my 21st birthday, I had my spiritual awakening. And for some context, around the time, I was an actress. I trained in musical theatre, yet another industry where you had to seek validation outside of yourself, and it
Mhm.
totally stands on what other people think of you. I was making my way in an acting career in musical theatre. I was with a boyfriend at the time who I was sure that I loved and I thought was good for me. And it turned out he was at that period of time. We're not together anymore, but he was definitely something that helped me, or he as a person helped me through that time. And I just come out of previously a very toxic relationship. So let straight into this new one, no break in between, thinking he'll save me, he'll fix me,
Mhm.
I'll feel happy if he loves me, X, Y, and Z. Started the relationship with him, and leading up to my spiritual awakening, I was noticing certain things that I was doing. I was going, God, that seems like a bit of an overreaction, Kira. Like, I'm not quite sure why you responded in that way. It's a very disproportionate reaction to
Mhm.
something that he just did. I was noticing myself getting a little bit more anxious with certain things, nothing major. And then I'll remember this day for the rest of my life because it was the day that everything changed. It was literally like a lightning bolt struck. 27th of October, 2019, I woke up and in one go, I was awake and aware of everything that had been running the show for me throughout my entire young adult life and my childhood from the moment those patterns were formulated.
Mhm.
And this manifested itself in chronic anxiety. First, it began in the body, the classic anxiety symptoms, sickness to the pit of the stomach, racing heart, clammy hands. And as I tried to work out what it was that was happening, because I had never felt this before, as far as I was aware, turns out I had, except I'd just cut myself off from the feeling entirely. I'd disassociated myself so I didn't have to feel the pain that I was feeling in my body underneath. Here I was becoming awake to it again and feeling it as I thought for the first time. As I tried to intellectualize what it was that I was feeling, my mind started to race. The brain started to try and find whatever it could to work out what it was that was causing this existential fear feeling. It was like a feather could land on my hand and it would feel like someone had thrown a rock on it. I was so hypersensitive, so attuned to every single sensation,
Mhm.
hyper aroused in my body. So I thought that morning, well, I'll just do a bit of yoga, I'll do what I usually do and it'll go away.
Mhm.
And it didn't go away. And this sensation, this anxiety response lasted in my body for, I say give or take, around 6 months, because I'm not entirely sure exactly how long. From
Mhm.
the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed, I was in this existential panic state. And I had no idea what it was that I was going through at that point in time.
Mhm.
And because I was so panicked in my body, this led to horrific intrusive thoughts because my brain started to race and I felt like I couldn't grasp control over what it was that I was thinking. So
Mhm.
my brain just ran away with itself. I'd be walking down the street and I would imagine horrific things happening to people or me
Oh,
doing horrific things to
no.
horrible people. And I was terrified and I didn't know who I could speak to.
Mhm.
Even those closest to me, the
Mhm.
ones that, I can usually share my entire life with, I still felt like there was a barrier there because I had never known anybody that had experienced what I was going through to that extent. And I felt if I talk to somebody, I'm going to be sent to a madhouse. That's what I felt in myself and in my mind because, how do you tell somebody that you're witnessing in your brain these horrible things and I have this panicked feeling that I just can't stop. So I just kept going and going and going through my life. And it turned out that's the thing that saved me, the fact that I kept going and managed to find a path within that. I started doing, a few practices here and there, going to see some more spiritual healers as I felt like the mainstream wasn't necessarily for me because of the
Mhm.
reason that I just said. Not that I would have been judged, but that was just how I felt at the time. And this challenge kept going on and on and on. And it got to the March of 2020. So we're about 5 months on from this cataclysmic day when everything changed. I couldn't see at that point a way of getting through. I thought I was broken. I thought that was me forever. Little did I know it was my body, it was my heart, it was my spirit crying for me to come home, for me to learn how to connect with my body, learn how to love myself again. But in the March of 2020, I was contemplating suicide. I was working out how I was going to do it, when I would do it, if that was something that, would, I just wanted to be away from what it was that I was feeling. And I couldn't see another way out at that point. Call it divine intervention, call it goddess consciousness, God, whatever you like. But my heart from within me whispered, and it was a whisper. And I'm so thankful that I caught it, that I heard that voice say to me, don't, that's not the way out. You're going to help people do this someday. So just keep going. And at that point, I was there like on my knees going, okay, I'm not sure how I'm going to work this out, but okay, I'll keep going. And I had my teacher training for my very first yoga teacher training booked about a week after that. This is before the world imploded, by the way, because I'm aware that
Mhm.
March 2020 is when we all went into lockdown. So this is about
Yeah.
2 weeks before lockdown happened as well. So I had my yoga teacher training booked and I thought, okay, well, I'll go on that. And the only reason that I had that booked genuinely was because I thought I'll earn some extra money from it whilst I'm acting. It'll be like a side hustle. I had no idea about the spirituality behind it. I had no idea about the philosophy behind it. I flew to Spain, sat in that first philosophy circle, and landed in my body for the first time in possibly my entire young adult life, but certainly in that
Mm.
6 months. And I thought, this is going to be it. This is the start of how I'm going to save myself. And the rest is history. I have been forging my path. I've had a daily meditation practice since because it landed mainly in terms of meditation. That was how I started the journey and how I started my own self healing. Very deeply connected to yoga asana as well as I became a yoga teacher and then began to explore that myself. But I've also explored different ways of how to connect back to the body, how to heal the nervous system, and how to love myself better again, how to
Mhm.
really step back into self-love as a devotional path to live life, as opposed to it being something that you pick up and you put down and you just use, when you're in the pits or when when you feel like it. Oh, a self-care evening on a Friday night, that's great, of course it is, but self-love goes way deeper than that, way, way deeper.
I believe that. I believe self-love does start with truly being within. It starts like really, we weren't taught that as kids, about self-love until we learned it's a little too late, or um, when I like to say the kitchen gets really hot and you are trying to find different directions, or for example, I like to mention that a dark tunnel that you go through. And for me, sometimes I feel like with self-love, I'm still going through that dark tunnel because
Mm.
it's like, okay, you're dealing with one minute you're happy, the next minute you're sad, and you're trying to figure out, well, why am I sad today? What's the problem? Why did I wake up sad or feeling alone? And I thank you for sharing that because I know that's not easy to share a story like this because so many women do feel alone in this transition where they're like, you're cooking and cleaning and you're doing all the things for everybody else. But when you're by yourself at the end of the day, you're kind of looking around like, well, who's there for me? You're turning the left,
Mm.
turning to the right. Who's there for me? Yeah, you can speak to someone and it kind of may help lift your spirits for that moment or for that second. But it does start with self loving in that self, within yourself. So I appreciate you sharing that with me because I love that you talked about self love as not only a lifestyle, but something where it's forever needed.
Mhm.
It's forever needed, especially like self care. It's especially needed. Like you said, you can't just pick something up on a Friday, Saturday night and put it back down. This is something with self care you have to continue bettering yourself or continuing to make sure that you have that self love for yourself before you give it off to your children or your husband or, your wife, whoever your spouse may be, or just choosing the self love within your friends. So, what does radical self love actually look like in real life to you?
For me, it's lived every single day.
Hmm.
And that doesn't mean that I am constantly trying to find things to do for
Hmm.
myself. That shows me that I love myself. It's not that. The way I like to describe it is that you are your very first, and truthfully, without sounding particularly morbid, until death do you part. And that is the truth of it. There is nobody else that is guaranteed to be with you for the rest of your life other than yourself. So I love to ask the question, whatever it is that you are expecting from a romantic relationship or you want from a romantic relationship, that needs to come from you first.
Hmm.
You need to act like you are in relationship with yourself because you are. And there are going to be days within that relationship, as if you're with a partner currently, if you're listening to this and you have a husband or a wife or whoever it is that you are with, there are days where nothing is necessarily particularly happening within that relationship container. You're just living, you're
Mhm.
just moving, but there is this unspoken presence and this unspoken sense of love, hopefully, underneath that relationship that
Mhm.
is holding it together. It has to be the same with you. Yes, that muscle is exercised through different practices, through different techniques, through
Mhm.
whatever it is that you like to do to show yourself self love. But it's about holding this sense of continued loving awareness as much as you can with the through line. So, on the days when you are feeling deep sadness, or you wake up and you think, I'm in this funk and I just don't know why I'm in this funk, being able to become aware of yourself and your body and hold that awareness without actually having to fix it or shift it or change it in the first instance, just holding a loving space for that and going, okay, this is me today. And just as life evolves and just as the seasons evolve, this is me evolving today. And I'm just
Mhm.
in this phase. At some point, I'll find something to help myself. But right now, I'm lovingly acknowledging and lovingly accepting exactly as myself, exactly as I am. What I always say self love is not, and I'll say these two things as well, is solely self care. Self care is a part of self love, but you can put as many face masks as you want every night for the rest of your life
Mhm.
and still be deeply unhappy if you're not looking at the actual shit underneath. And it's also not wallowing in self pity the entire time and going, woe is me, and coddling yourself to stay in that place. It is loving, it is
Mhm.
accepting, it is saying, okay, this is where I'm at right now, and that's okay. But then when the time feels right, it's finding the tools and finding the compassion to get yourself out of that. Sometimes there is a tough love sense as well. But to answer your question, that was that was a very round the houses way of
No, I
saying,
love it.
thank you. A very round the houses way of saying that it's this consistent underlying current
Mhm.
that once you're aware of and once you're tapped into and you strengthen it through the practices and you strengthen it through all those other things, but you can hold it and keep it there just like you would in a romantic relationship. So even on the days where not much is happening, not much is shifting, it feels a
Mhm.
bit boring, you're just spending a lot of time on the sofa in your jogging bottoms and eating lots of chocolate and doing the things, you still have that underlying current of it's okay because this is
Mhm.
the evolvement right now.
Yeah, because it's like I feel like we're taught to pour into everyone else first. When it comes to self-love, we're pouring into, like I said, our children, our spouses, our family, just friends, everyone around us. And so sometimes I doom scroll a little bit a lot on social media. And so I've be like, oh wow, this couple may, they look happy. But how is self-love different from what we usually see on social media? Is it kind of like, I want to say like a reflection of a mirror? With that mirror, you kind of see one thing on social media, but it may not actually be what we actually see in real life.
Absolutely. So there's two things I would love to address in what you've just said there. The first
Mhm.
thing is that Instagram, Facebook, social media, we hear it so many times, but I think we need these reminders again and again and again, is everyone's highlight reel.
Mhm.
Everyone's highlight reel. I mean, obviously there is a sense of people being more authentic. There is that now on Instagram a little bit more, people sharing their raw emotions or sharing their truth or sharing their story. But a lot of the time, the images that you see, it is people's highlight reel. I mean, their life probably doesn't even look like that a lot of the time. It's literally just the photos that have been curated and shaped and shifted to
Mhm.
present this best version of self, which is fine. Some people love to create an Instagram feed that feels like art. I like to do that too. I like to feel very artistic and creative when I'm creating my spaces and I'm creating my feed. So I get that. But
Mhm.
sometimes we forget that life doesn't look like that most of the time. And they're still having the funk and they're still having moments where not much is happening. And they're still having moments where their kitchen counter is piled up with dirty dishes and they're
Mhm.
thinking, oh my gosh, the kids are crying on the floor and I have these dishes to do. That's probably still a reality for them. The second thing that I love to touch on of what you said is about how Instagram or social media, but not just that, our lives and everything in our lives is a
Mhm.
mirror. And I really believe in this. I really believe in this concept of everything being a mirror for us or medicine for us or both.
Okay.
As in, everything in the external world is totally relating to you and where you are at that point in time. And this is something that really came to me when I was in that period of chronic anxiety, suicidal depression, because I would go out into the world. I started with listening to a lot of Abraham Hicks videos. I don't know whether you've heard of Abraham Hicks before.
I've
She
never
does a lot of
I've never heard of her.
so it's Esther Hicks is her name, but she
Mhm,
channels this entity or these spirit guides called Abraham, and she talks a
mhm,
lot about manifestation. I fell into those videos at the very beginning of my journey and kind of was listening to them to claw myself through the days. But
mhm,
one of the things that she was saying was go out into nature and find things to appreciate, find things to be grateful about. So I was like, okay, well, I'll go out into nature and I'll find things to be grateful about. I was walking around and I think, what a lovely rose. And my mind and my body would barrage back death and destruction. And that at that period of time was what I believe. That was what I was believing was the case.
mhm,
Now I could go and see the exact same rose and it would look beautiful to me. It would fill me with joy. It would fill me with life. That is exactly the same as our relationships, as our work, as the
mhm,
things that are within our life and within our remit. That's by no means saying that every single ounce of accountability is with you, because of course it's not. There are some other factors that shift and change in our lives.
mhm,
However, the way that you see your world and the way that you see yourself and the way that you see everything within your life and how it relates to you will be different based on the state that you are in at that particular point in time.
okay,
So, if you're feeling a little bit more vulnerable within yourself and you're looking at someone's Instagram feed and they put up this beautifully created family photo and you think, oh my goodness, my family doesn't look like that today. I've barely got myself dressed. My kids have
mhm,
sick down their top. Like that's where you'll come at it from. Whereas when you're in a place of feeling a little bit more resilient, you're feeling a bit more filled up, like we said, and like you've mentioned, filling up that cup, serving yourself, really like
mhm,
tending to your inner world in the best way that you can.
mhm,
Your reaction might be to that photo, my goodness, that is so inspiring. How can I make my life feel a little bit more like art today? Let me try and find the things I can
mhm,
appreciate like art a little bit more today. So, the entire world at all times is giving us this opportunity of mirror or medicine, sometimes both, mirror or medicine. Where can I turn this back on myself, find the reflection and go, okay, what's this telling me about myself and my inner world and who I am and my
mhm,
triggers and my beliefs? What's this telling me about that at this point in time? And the medicine, sometimes it's just, that is just a soothing balm for my soul. And that's exactly what that is. But as I mentioned, the medicine can also be the mirror and vice versa. The two quite
mhm.
often very much are interlinked in that way.
And it does feel like that it's almost, it kinda, like, comes into a full center circle moment when you have whether it's medicine or the mirror, like, what reflection that you're gonna get because you can have both. That comes
Mm.
to about. And so with that center, I really want to center this around motherhood because we both are mothers, you know?
Yes.
And so sometimes I feel like we don't have, not sometimes, why is it that with self love it's so important, especially not only for us as moms, but for other
Mhm.
moms or other women that may are not moms that want to pour that self love into themselves. And my other question would be is what are some ways for not only moms, but women can start loving themselves better without always feeling like today I just don't feel, I don't feel 100% today and I can't do this obligation. So why can't we kind of center back on not feeling guilty about that?
I will start with that I actually became a mother about 4 years into my self love journey. So I had really been flexing this muscle for quite some time beforehand. And that is something
Mhm,
I'm so, so grateful for because honestly, it held me together through pregnancy, through birth, and through those
mhm,
early postpartum days when we're really like in the trenches and everything is all change and all different. And you're thinking, how am I going to navigate life again with this new little human? Having said that, if you are beginning this within motherhood, if this is the first time you're embarking upon a journey of self love, or you've just started your own transformational journey, your own self love, self healing journey whilst being a mother, don't panic. There's never a too late time to start
that is
ever.
very true, ladies. If you're thinking about being a mom, it's never too late. That is so true.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's never too late to start that self love. It's so important because as a mother, you are raising the next generation of human beings. I go back to what I began with at the very start of this conversation that your habits, your beliefs, your patterns, everything that you see within the world is formulated in
Mhm.
childhood. How you then view the external world for the rest of your life, unless you choose to change it. That's a very important piece, unless you choose to change it, because you can change it. We now know through neuroplasticity that the neuron pathways in the brain can be changed throughout life. So we're not fixed as we are. We can change these habits and these patterns, but it
Mhm.
does start in childhood. So what you are embodying is what your child is going to see as a woman walking through the world, or a person walking through the world, however you identify. That's what they're going to see. That's how they're going to know to treat themselves and the standards that they're going to hold for themselves.
Yeah.
So not only is it important for you, just because you are enough and you are
Mhm.
deserving of love, and pouring into yourself in that way is important, but everything that you do, it's the least selfish thing you can possibly do, because then your child, your children, or if you don't have children, if you have, if you're a godmama to somebody, or you're
Mhm.
working with children, they are going to see exactly what it is that you are doing within your life. And they're going to think, that is an example of what I want to lead through the world as. That's how I want to live my life too. How
Mhm.
can I start to love myself from when they don't have to learn, when it's literally just being absorbed into their being and it's becoming a part of who they are? So it's so, so important. And I hope that takes a little bit of the guilt away. I say a little bit of the guilt because I think we have this thing as mums sometimes where we just feel guilty for existing sometimes. And that is just the way that it is. I'm not saying that you should, but that is
Mhm.
just, that guilt feeling comes up. You can't help it. In those early days and those early moments when you're really struggling to find the time to do things, and you're struggling with that guilt of, oh gosh, now how am I going to even create like half an hour to spend some time to myself, to do my inner child work, or to do my journaling,
Mhm.
when I really feel like I need to be here for my child or my husband or my partner or my family, is to start with the 1%. The 1% shift that you can make, the 1% little thing that you can take to show yourself that you are there for you in that moment, in that day. Because you do have, like you said, points where you think, I don't have the bandwidth, or I can't be bothered. I would never say to somebody, sit on that, because I think, be bothered. Be
Mhm.
bothered for yourself, but be bothered to the degree that you can. So if that's a 30 seconds, let me just sit and breathe and not have any distractions for 30 seconds. I'm just going to sit here and take those breaths. Then that's incredible.
That
If you
is
can do that
incredible.
3 times in your day, that's incredible. Like that is an amazing shift. And we underestimate how much of a change that can make, because the little steps compound and compound and compound and compound. And those little steps are actually better for you to do than taking 2 hours once every 2 weeks. Taking those 30 seconds throughout the day
Mhm.
is an amazing place to start with whatever it is that is your tonic, whether it's, like I said, the deep breaths, or, okay, let me just take a moment to journal what it is that I'm feeling.
Or
Let
even
me
a
just
walk.
understand. Yeah, or a walk.
I've been doing walking a lot lately, and that's helped me in a kind of like a mental space. And then also, I like that you can also, like I said, I've been journaling a lot lately and kind
Um,
of letting it all out. And I think journaling is something that a lot of people should do, because when you're writing your thoughts, you can see things a little bit clearly on paper versus what you have all jumbled in your head, and it kind of
yeah.
releases all that toxins out of you, which I think that's another cool tool to use. Which I like to get into this because you also work with women on people pleasing and the inner work, like the inner childhood work and the anxiety. So, can you explain a little bit about that, and how does this help show up in women all the time, and what does reconnecting with your inner childhood looks like?
Of course. So the three are so intimately interlinked: people pleasing, inner child work, and the anxiety response, because they quite often show up within each other.
Uh-huh.
People pleasing in itself is an inner child response. That is a survival mechanism that a lot of us have learned from childhood. In fact, it's actually being coined now within the fight, flight, or freeze response. There's also fawn, which is, to a sense, people pleasing, appeasing somebody to
Mhm.
get something, to earn safety, to earn love, to earn security. People pleasing within women, particularly, I'm not saying exclusively at all, but this is
Mhm.
my area of expertise. People pleasing within women is an epidemic. It is something that not only has been perpetuated on our family level,
Huh?
but also a societal level. And society has bred this good girl archetype. Be subdued, be palatable, be nice, be kind, generous, giving. Don't worry about yourself. Don't speak up. Just be easy to deal with and you will be all right. And that's the kind of thing that society has perpetuated for a long time. The people pleasing archetype can also come around if you have been in an emotionally volatile household growing up and you learned that, okay, me being a certain version of myself or me doing certain things means that I'm going to be safe.
Okay.
Because what I'd like to remind everybody is that when you're in childhood, the things that you are responding to, it literally is a matter of your safety. It's a matter of survival because as a child, your priority is to be fed,
Mm-hmm.
be accepted,
Mm-hmm.
and be loved and to have
Right.
shelter. Those basic needs, that is your priority. So that's what you're going to seek to find. And so often we fall into those people pleasing patterns because it feels like the only way that I'm going to get the love that I crave, get the safety that I crave, I'm not going to be ostracized, is to shapeshift myself to be this certain way. It can also occur if you have been in a family where there's quite a lot of high achieving going on and you have to meet a certain bar in order to again get that acceptance, get that love. So you do as much as you possibly can, you achieve as much as you possibly can to keep face, to gain the love, to gain the security that you need. That's not exclusively the only thing, what the places that it occurs, but those are the classic places that seem to be the case, seem to be how people pleasing patterns are developed. And then we go through our entire lives learning how to do that better, how to please
Mm-hmm.
people, how to shapeshift, how to change. And people pleasing isn't love, it's fear. So the underlying response underneath people pleasing, quite a lot of the time, is an undercurrent of anxiety.
Interesting.
Because if I don't get my needs met, if I don't appease this person, my needs won't be met and I won't be safe.
Okay, so I see it now. I get it now because I felt like I've done that my whole entire life. Like if I feel like if something doesn't go well in a certain situation, then I try to fix the situation and try to make it better. And then when the situation don't get better, it's like, why did I do it in the first place?
Absolutely. I think there's going to be so many women that are not, you're definitely not alone in that. That was me also. And sometimes it still is me because this is the thing healing is not linear. And there are moments when it feels easier and more difficult to move away from the patterns that have been so deeply ingrained in us. It's a work in progress every single day.
Hmm.
What I often find that happens with people who are people pleasers as well is that there is a disconnect from the body because the body has told them, has given them this signal, this emotional intel that something isn't right. And rather
Hmm.
than listening to the body, it's the brain intellectualizing and going, well, how can I fix this? How can I make them like me? How can I make them give me what it is that I need in that moment rather than going, how can I self soothe? How can I advocate for myself? How can I connect back to what need it is that I am requiring? So there's often this real disconnect between body and mind within people that people please a lot. I think I find that with women in general, we've been severed from our bodies. We've been told that they're unsafe, untrustworthy places to be, which couldn't be further from the truth. But a lot of the work between inner child healing, between looking at the people pleasing pattern and moving away from experiences of anxiety is learning how to connect back to the body, connect back to the emotions, become aware of them, and learn how to serve the emotions in the best way that you can, not act from them, but just using them as intel for your experience. What's that emotion telling me? How can it be a way that I can speak up for myself or give myself what it is that I need? So, a
Hmm.
big piece of that puzzle between all three people pleasing, inner child work, and experiences of anxiety or mental health difficulties is how can I connect back to my body? How can I stop intellectualizing so much? Stop trying to find
Find
or
what's
think
wrong.
things through. Exactly. And just be with the sensation. And then once that's been held space for,
Hmm.
then finding the way out of that into the more
Like a positive.
positive pattern. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a positive direction. Okay. That's interesting to identify each three or each three or four. Cause like, especially I know I get anxiety
Mm.
with certain situations. And now I kind of see it in my daughter where she gets anxiety. And I'm trying to work through on the tools to kind of, when I notice I see the anxiety coming or like a panic attack coming or things of that nature, I'm trying to work on tools now to better on like, okay, it's a panic attack coming. Don't know why. It may be because it's like an unfamiliar place, maybe, or something that triggered that panic attack. And so I kind of like sit with it. And I
Mm.
understand that it'll come at any point in time, but I kind of like take some breaths and try to relax. So I like how you explained all three. Now, before we wrap up with this lovely conversation, I would love for you to share how women can work with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Mhm,
So, there are several ways women can work with me at this point in time. My work is solely based online at this point.
mhm,
I do run retreats. I haven't got anything in the pipeline at the moment, but if you would like to connect with me about that, then my Instagram is at compassionate_awakened_living. Starting in July, I have my 6 month transformational self love program beginning again, which is Dating Your Soul.
mhm.
This is my absolute love letter to women. This is I don't like to say the favorite thing that I do because I love my work so much, but this is the program where I'm like, "Oh, this is everything that I've learned, everything that I've crystallized and distilled into one gorgeous 6 month program where we work through ancestral patterns, inner child healing. So that's a big piece of the puzzle there.
Uh,
This sense of awareness, becoming aware of emotions, of becoming aware of your patterns. We move through the connection back to the body, how to communicate, and really celebrating yourself through self love. It is
mhm.
such an incredible celebration of womanhood in all of its forms. That begins the live cohort again in July and will
Okay.
last for 6 months. I do also have a 3 month container for that, that is with no contact time with me. You can just do that as it rolls if 6 months feels too long for you. I also have my signature masterclass, Golden Girl, which is solely about how to get out of the mind and into the body using my Golden Girl method. So, at the top of this podcast, you mentioned about how I've become the Golden Girl of my own life. And I don't believe that I'm special in that way. I think every single woman on the planet has the power to absolutely transform their lives and release this gorgeous inner radiance that they have within them. We all have it. It's
Mhm.
just a case of using the tools to tap back into it and really giving your inner world as much attention as you give the external world. Because we, like you said, we give the external world so much attention, so much of the time. And the way that you relate to your external world will totally transform if you place more of the emphasis on your inner world. So, Golden Girl is the place for that. That's the best place to connect back to your body. I have Born to Be Bad, which is my 5 day challenge to ditch the people pleasing and release the inner badass. So that's
Mhm.
over on my Instagram as well. You can get hold of that directly through me.
Okay.
And then the Inner Ally Mini Method is my methodology for how I bring inner child transformation. I like to call it inner child remembering because I feel like within a child work, there's so much emphasis on how can I fix, how can I heal. And as
Mhm.
a child, you were born perfect. Nobody's ever looked at a baby and gone, oh my goodness, what an evil looking baby. Nobody's done that.
No.
99% of the time, it is nurture over nature. That's not to blame anybody, but that is fact. That's the way that it is.
Mm,
So I like to think of it as remembering the truest, most beautiful essence of your inner child. And she can become your ally if you do. She can become a beautiful ally in your day to day life. So those are my 4 programs that are currently running and are
okay.
in a continuous movement. You can also work one to one with me as well. So if this work interests you, then my DMs are always open. Even if the work doesn't interest you and you're like, hey, I heard this conversation and I kind of want to chat, just leave into my DMs anyway. It's always open. And I'm so grateful that you've had me on board to share this conversation today, Erica. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you. This conversation has been so powerful. So I have one more final question. What's one thing you want every woman, especially every mother, to take away from this episode?
I'm going to give the starting point for every single journey. This was certainly the starting point for my own journey. And once you do this, it's so simple. Once you do this, that you have so much power to change your life and to love yourself better. And that is to notice yourself, to actually take the time, whether it's that 30 seconds, whether it's one deep inhale, one deep exhale, whether you have an hour to spare and you can sit with yourself, but notice yourself. Notice what's happening in your body. Notice what's happening in your mind. Notice how you are feeling at this point in time. Because once you give yourself that level of awareness, you start to create space. And that space is what gives you autonomy to then make a choice to move in the direction that you want to go in. But you can't do any of that if you don't notice yourself and notice exactly what is going on within you. So if you can take 30 seconds today, that's homework.
Yes,
Every woman, go away from this podcast 30 seconds and notice yourself. Like, give yourself that same presence and attention that you give everybody else in your life. Just give it to yourself for 30 seconds and then see how that informs the rest of your day and then the rest of your life.
I like that. I'm going to use that homework for myself. Well, Sierra, thank you so much for your honesty, your vulnerability, and the work that you are doing. If this episode speaks to you, please share it with another friend, a mama, a sister, a dad can even listen to this as a reminder. Just know that you're allowed to choose yourself first. As always, I say check me out on all social medias. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok as usual. You can subscribe to the Spotify and Apple. I'm actually streaming everywhere, including YouTube. I am also having a Amazon storefront. So if you have any books that you want to send my way, Sierra, go ahead and send them to me so I can add them onto the storefront, as well as I am empowered by LifeWave as well. So you guys can check it out on the www.thebalancebossmompodcast, which is official. It is a website out there. So I'll talk to you next time. Sierra, thank you again for coming on the Balance Boss Mom podcast. I hope you come back. I really do. I hope you come back.
I'd love to come back. I
Mhm.
would love to come back. Thank you so much, Erica.
You're welcome. Well, guys, you heard her. She said she's going to come back. So bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.